We will call the meeting to order. And we will start tonight with our pledge, Mr. Cooper.
Good evening. My name is Chris Coder. I'm the principal at Willow Springs. Tonight, I would like to introduce one of our Willow Springs Middle School students, Kaisa Sykes. Kaisa joined our Lovejoy family just last year. She decided to participate in the PALS Leadership Program in 8th grade because she knew all too well what it was like to be a new student in a new school. She wanted to help others feel welcome and accepted. Kaisa is a smart, kind, committed, and funny student, all characteristics of a successful leader. I had a chance to talk to Kaisa a little bit today. She told me that she really enjoys playing golf, that she is in theater. I just found out that she got one of the roles in our upcoming theater production of Willy Wonka, and I know she's super excited about that. She also has a bull mastiff named Ridge that she loves to play with. So all of that being said, I'd like to welcome up Kaisa Sykes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Cooper, I think we're going to get a picture.
Thank you. Thank you very much and great job. Next up is our roll call. Let the minutes reflect that all board members were present. And with that, item 5 is introduction of new hires. Ms. Koenig, Mr. Parker. Or both.
And Ms. Cordell. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to ask Ms. Cordell to come up, and we are going to recognize our new hires. As Ms. Cordell will tell you, we give them a caramel apple and a pen, and the pen basically represents their next chapter in their professional career. We hope that they stay here and write that next chapter. And the apple, of course, symbolizes them in their teaching field and learning. So I'm going to ask Mr. Parker, you want to introduce our first introduction to our new hire?
Thank you. My only new hire tonight, as you know, you guys approved an additional marshal for our school marshal team. And I have the pleasure to introduce Chris Murphy. You want to come on up, Chris? Mr. Murphy, before joining our marshal team, he's an 8-year U.S. Army veteran. He's retired from the Denton Police Department, where he served in the Fugitive Apprehension Task Force, in the Juvenile Crimes Division on the SWAT team and the U.S. Marshal Task Force. He just recently completed his TCOL training, where he can now serve and carry on our, after your approval tonight, can serve and carry in our schools. And we had a lot of good applicants. He far and away stood out, and he's going to be a great addition to our team. We're really glad to be able to add him to help keep our staff and students safe here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Ms. Perkins?
Hi. We have 2 staff members to introduce tonight from the Lovejoy Child Development Center. So the first one is Amanda Puckett. Amanda is our new coordinator for the Lovejoy Child Development Center, and she is going to be overseeing all of our early childhood programs as well as our after-school programs there. Amanda graduated from Texas A&M. And her family is here tonight, her husband, Scott, and her 2 sons. Barrett is a freshman at Lovejoy High School, and Bennett's in 6th grade at Sloan Creek. And we are super excited to have Amanda on the team. Right. We also want to introduce Susan Patno. Susan is one of our pre-K teachers at the Lovejoy Child Development Center. Susan graduated from the University of North Texas, and she has 2 children as well. She has one son that's already graduated from Lovejoy named Quinn, and then Kala is a senior at Lovejoy High School. So we are super excited to have Susan as well.
All right. Thanks for having me tonight. Principal Travis Zambezi at the high school, and we've got 13 teachers to recognize that are new to campus. And so we'll start off first with a social studies teacher, Deborah Adams. And Miss Adams got her bachelor's and master's at Abilene Christian and has 4 years of teaching experience. So congratulations. And then a couple are not with us tonight, but I'm going to announce them anyways. Morgan Alexander's our broadcast teacher. She has her bachelor's and master's from Syracuse, and this will be her first year teaching. So that's Miss Alexander. Next up, I know this person's here, just saw her. Miss DeMarco is a social studies teacher. She went to Smith College and DePaul University College of Law. She's been in education, and this is her first year teaching. Next up is an English teacher, Christy Green. She got her bachelor's and master's from Texas Women's University and has 8 years of teaching experience. Next up is a science teacher, Miss Nezrini Haji. She went to the University of Texas at Dallas and has 4 years of teaching experience. All right, is Miss Hart here? Okay, I'm going to introduce Miss Hart. She is a social studies teacher from the University of Minnesota. She's got 1 year of teaching experience. Along with her, someone who's also not with us here tonight is Miss Helmerich, a Spanish teacher. She came to us from Capel ISD, and she's graduated from the New Mexico State University with 12 years of experience. And we'll move on now to someone who's here, Miss Parker Morrison Tuason. She's a special education teacher. She went to the University of South Carolina, and she's a first year teacher. Congratulations. And next up is our new department lead for English. She's an English teacher. She came from Frisco ISD. Miss Elise Pollard. She went to East Texas Baptist and recently got her master's at Texas A&M University. This is her 4th year teaching. Next up is Miss Clarissa Shirley. She is our yearbook teacher. She went to the University of Texas at Austin and has 17 years of experience. Not with us tonight is Mr. James Small. He's our new special education teacher. He went to Long Beach State and has 7 years of teaching experience. And is Miss Tomlinson here? All right, we'll end with one who is here. So real quick, Miss Tomlinson went to Texas Tech University. She's an English teacher with 8 years of experience. And last but not least, also coming from Frisco ISD, she's actually an English teacher and debate teacher, and our new head debate coach, Miss Reagan Varnell, got her bachelor's and master's from Texas A&M University and has 4 years of experience. And so that's our high school teachers.
All right, item 6, public comments related to August 29th, 2022 agenda item.
We have no public comments.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Bobo, would you lead us in the invocation, please?
Yeah, everyone bow your heads. Dear God, we are grateful for all the parents, students, teachers, administrators, parents, volunteers in the Lovejoy community. Help be with us as we get rolling on this school year. Be with us as we educate and grow our students. I'm asking on behalf of the board and administration for wisdom to make good choices and decisions tonight, guide our thinking and sharpen our minds. May we all keep servant leadership in front of our minds. Amen.
Thank you, Marvin. All right, item 8, notification item.
Yes, I believe attached in your board docs is notifications of resignations and also notification of new hires. We've attached that for your review too.
Thank you very much. Item 9 is our consent agenda. Are there any items noted that you would like pulled for discussion? And if not, I'd entertain an action. So moved, Ann Smith. Second, Jeff Wood. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Item 10, presentation, debt service and INS update. Dr. Duplessis.
Good evening. This evening, we wanted to take a moment to discuss a portion of our budget that we haven't spent quite as much time on as we have the general fund over the last several months. We do have an M&O portion of our funding as well as a debt service portion of our funding. The debt service or interest and sinking fund portion is used to fund capital items such as building and construction through a series of bonds. And so our financial advisor, as all districts have, is Samco, and Doug Witt from Samco is with us here this evening to talk a little bit about our strategy around managing our debt service funds. Last year in October of 2021, we received our first rating that the district received using 1920 data. In that first rating for indicator 12, we only achieved 8 out of 10 points. That is because the indicator was the debt per $100 of assessed property value ratio sufficient to support future debt repayments. And so we didn't achieve quite as many points in that area as we would like to. And so we've been looking at some options that we would have to pay off some of our debt early, that we would have the ability to do so on our debt service side. So Doug is going to share some information with us on the detail around our bond series and some options we may have this year.
Okay, good evening. It's good to be back. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. We do have a presentation and I'm guessing I'm running the control here. Okay. All right, so there are some small numbers. I see that y'all have pads there in front of you, so hopefully you can see those. I am going to pull out a hard copy. So the first slide here is historical statistics. The column 2 is your net taxable value. In 2012, 2013, it was at $1.5 billion. Today it's at $3.6 billion. Your district, like many of our districts here in North Texas, had a big increase in the tax base this year. Yours was over 15% from the growth from 21-22 to 22-23. That was $495 million of growth in column 3. That's the biggest growth year that we've had since you've been in existence. Column 4, 5, and 6 is your historical tax rate. As Dr. Duplessis said, the maintenance and operating tax rate is in column 4. That rate is, funded by formula and mandate and compression. Our INS tax rate is shown in column 5, which is what the voters approved with the bonds that they approved. So we've been at 50 cents for quite some time now, and you can see there in 22-23 is where we are today. Column 7 is your interest and sinking fund balance on an 8/31 basis. So for Texas school districts, we have some on a June 30 and some on an 8/31 basis. All of our voted bonds are on the state fiscal year end, which is 8/31, which means our payments are in February and August. So we treat it on what we call a cash flow basis. We measure our INS fund balance, not what goes in your audit, but what we'll have after we make our August 15th payment. We collect taxes in January, which is used heavily to make the February 15th payment, and then the 6 months later is August. So this is on an 8/31 basis. You can see there that in a couple of years, we got up into 2.6 million, and then shortly thereafter utilized that money for redemption of bonds, principal payment, and so forth. And so again, we're just below $2 million in 21-22. And where we go from 22-23 is what we're here to talk about some tonight. I failed to mention at the start, feel free to stop me at any time. There are many slides. If there's a question on any particular component, please let me know. All right, so again, talking about the history of our bond programs and our debt service fund, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2021, the district issued a portion of the bonds that were approved by the voters in May of 2014. In the 2017 issue was just under 3.5% average interest rate. It was 15 million. It was amortized over the traditional school construction amortization length of just below 30 years at 28.5 years. The 18, the 19, and the 21 bonds were shorter maturities, 2.5 years for 2018, 2.5 years for the 21 school building portion for capital items. And then the 19 was some combination of capital items and construction, and it was a 20-year amortization with a 10-year optional redemption. All of the interest rates during this period are very reasonable, very low. You can see one was below 1% for a very short amortization in 2021. You have 9.5 million of authorized but unissued bonds from the May 2014 election. That's the amount of bonds that have not yet been issued. Moving to the next slide is in addition to issuing new money bonds, you have conducted many refunding bonds over this period of time, including my favorite in 2021, where it was a very big refunding for this district. It saved about 19.5 million. It's the bottom set of numbers at the bottom of this slide. That 2021 did a lot of things for us. It eliminated capital appreciation bonds for that series that we refunded. It significantly lowered the interest rate. We accelerated the amortization, and we shortened the final maturity by 3 years. All of that resulted in what I would characterize as a financial home run with $19.5 million of savings. The others were blocking and tackling type refundings that we will do. The 2016 resulted in 7.8 million of interest cost savings. The 2018 had a net interest cost savings of 1.6 million. The 2018 was a combination of lowering the interest rate on existing bonds, but also paying off principal early. That's the $2 million cash contribution for principal reduction. So all during this period, when you were converting from K-6 to K-12, you obviously needed to issue bonds and finance school construction. Then we reached a point where we had gotten the schools constructed, and now you're amortizing bonds and paying them off early. So in the period of time that you've kind of converted from kind of a growing district to now an early amortization district is short by Texas standards because we're relatively landlocked. So it's a great case study for those who do what I do in terms of seeing the actual materialization, if you will, of going from fast growth to now early debt retirement. So again, refundings have been a big part of that. On the next page, the next slide, we also, in addition to the one combination refunding early redemption, you did a standalone defeasance and redemption in 2021 for the 2010 remaining maturity and the 2011 bonds that were outstanding. So you paid off 4.5 million bonds early, again, reducing the amount of principal and bonded indebtedness outstanding, improving the statistics that Dr. Duplessis was mentioning earlier. So again, that provided by paying those bonds off early, over $500,000 of interest cost savings. So that was not a refinancing to just lower the interest rate. It was an elimination of all interest cost on that balance of bonds. The next slide is just to review. The credit ratings of this district are very, very good. We have both a Moody's rating and a Standard & Poor's rating. Of course, in Texas, we generally have the AAA rating based upon the permanent school fund guarantee when we issue the bonds. I don't know if any of y'all have seen the news, but the PSF guarantee has a certain amount of limit of bonds in Texas that it can secure and guarantee principal payment. 2 times now we've reached the limit and the program had to stop. And then we got an IRS ruling that raised the limit. We're at the point now where we need the IRS to raise the limit again. We have about $3 billion worth of capacity there, but that goes pretty quick when you see school districts issuing 300 million at a time. So one of the points of this is that if you see something from the PSF that says we've applied for the 9.5 million, there's no indication that you're going to issue that, but I'm getting us a placeholder for those bonds to be secured by the permanent school fund guarantee. And it will be your determination at a later date as to what your plan is with respect to that. But at least we have that secured for us when the time is right. So we have AA2 and AA- underlying ratings. The Moody's AA2 is slightly higher by category than the AA-. So S&P goes AA-, AA, and then AA+. Moody's goes AA1, AA2, AA3. We're right in the middle on the Moody's. These are big ratings for a district of this size of population and this size of tax base. So for example, your Moody's rating is the same rating as Allen's. Allen has 5 times the population of students, 5 times the tax base, and yet we have the same credit quality that they do. And size matters in terms of our credit ratings. Bigger the economy, bigger the tax base, more diverse the tax base, bigger the population. Generally speaking, the starting point for credit ratings is higher. And then within those categories, they look at the things that we control, which is our budget, our operations, and those types of things. And you're in a category that's very, very good for us, particularly if the permanent school fund guarantee ever does run out of capacity. So I'm an advocate for the district. Y'all know this, but what the analysts cite, the independent analysts, there's 4 bullet points there that they cite: strong wealth and income indices, strong tax-based growth, historical stable financial profile with strong reserves. And that's something that y'all have to work on like every district. We have pressures in Texas school finance that every school board and administration has to deal with. So continuation of what has historically been a very good financial profile is important to you for credit quality. And then moderately high principal outstanding to assessed value ratio. So let's talk about that for just a second. What they characterize as moderately high principal outstanding, this is a national credit rating group. So they're measuring you against districts in Oklahoma and California and all the other states. Not all the other states fund their facilities like Texas does. We fund our facilities through voted bonds, and therefore we're going to have more principal outstanding than an equal neighbor in another state that has a different mechanism for funding facilities. If you just did a Texas review of your debt position to your assessed valuation and your population, you would not be considered moderately high, you would be considered moderate. You've gone where we were pretty high because we were growing and had to build the facilities. Now we're moderate. So for example, Allen has about the same statistics of debt to assessed value that you have, is an example. We have other districts nearby, several of them, as a matter of fact, whose statistics are about 3 times yours in terms of the amount of debt to assessed value. And it's because they are now hitting the growth and they're looking out and they're building homes faster than they can put kids in classrooms. The only thing they can do is issue bonds and build the building. So they're going to be at the high end of this. So moderately high is a national standard. By Texas, I would put it at very moderate. And the rating category that you're in is high investment grade. All right, so moving on to the next slide. Here is a look at your principal and interest. The principal is in black, the interest is in red. You can see your profile is what I call fading over time, declining over time. At the top there at 18 million, that's our estimated revenues. So what that tells us is we have an opportunity to do what you've been doing in the recent past, and that is accelerating the black bars up to earlier years for early debt retirement. Okay, and so that's the game plan. That's the current look. There's about 146 million of principal outstanding. Again, I would characterize that in Texas as moderate for your population, moderate for your tax base. And with limited pressures on a go-forward basis. The next slide, I call it the coral snake graph. It's the same information, the same fading bar profile, except it has every series of bonds that you have outstanding color coded. The key to this is in the bottom right, at the very bottom, you'll see a kind of dark green. That is your oldest bond outstanding. That's a 2013 refunding bond. And that would be a target for early redemption. Those bonds are callable at any time. Those are bonds that we can pay off in this fiscal year. And so those would be the starting point for the acceleration of principal, taking what I would call first in, first out. So your oldest bond first, paying it off soonest, and the rest of the profile is there. This is an ongoing situation. These models look static on the screen and in our spreadsheets, but they are truly dynamic models that you'll be having this discussion 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now on an ongoing basis. The next slide. I can't read it for the audience, but it is a look at each of those series of principal and interest by column. It's the same information except in spreadsheet format. All I'm doing here is highlighting column 2 in green. Those are the same bonds that we're talking about accelerating from a 29 payoff to a sooner payoff because we have a growth in our tax base and a need and desire to amortize principal early now that we have the opportunity to do that. So here are our approaching optional redemption dates. Again, you utilize to perfection the ones that you had in 2021. Here are our current optional redemption dates, the 2013, 8.8 million, maturities 23 to 29, and they're callable anytime. So that would be the target for early redemption. And then we have some bonds that are callable in 2024 and in 2025. Those are bonds that we'll be having the discussion of what we do with those in the future, whether it's pay it off early, refinance it at lower interest rates, change the principal amortization, change the structure of it. These are all decisions that will be forthcoming to us in the near future. On the next slide is the summary of an option that's available to you. Again, we're here tonight. There's no action item. This is a report. At your next board meeting, you may want this to be on the agenda for early redemption of a portion of the 2013 bonds. So if you go through the math of your budget versus your scheduled principal and interest and how much you could accelerate the principal, we're putting that number right around 3.2 million, which would leave next year's INS fund balance about where we are today. So in a good, healthy position, but not any excess and certainly not any depletion. And so that amount is 3.2 million. It would save interest cost of 387,600. And it would eliminate the 28 and 29 maturity and a portion of the 27 maturity. So it's making this bond much, much shorter. We can't pay it off all. We don't have that amount of cash available. We want to retain some in the INS fund balance to be healthy, but that is, I think, a good blend of utilizing the INS fund revenues for early redemption. If we do that, it looks like this on page 12. So here we take some of the bars in 28, 29, and 27. We accelerate it to 23. We balance the budget, and then you have this fading debt service profile on a go-forward basis that we get another snapshot to change 6 months, 12 months, and 18 months from now. So that's a look at the early redemption plan. If it is something that you want to consider, there is a preliminary schedule of events here. Tonight is kind of review our debt service fund, talk about the early redemption. September, if you wish, you can adopt a resolution allowing for the early redemption. February of 23 is the target payoff date. Again, we still have taxes that we need to collect in January for the scheduled principal that occurs in February. That would also be the time that we could accelerate some of that principal, February of 23. And then to be determined is that 9.5 million of authorized but unissued. What and when is the game plan for that? That will factor into our decisions 6 months, 18 months from now, as we're looking at existing bonds plus any potential issuance of the new bonds from the voted authorization. So with that, that is a pretty quick report. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Again, not an action item tonight, just a report. But if it is something that you want to pursue, we can put this on a future agenda.
So my understanding that what we're talking about with this early redemption would be similar to the previous 2 million that was done that you talked about in a couple of slides. So anything different than what we had done previously then?
Yeah, so the 2 million slide was a combination of early redemption and refunding.
Okay.
So there we did two things. We couldn't pay off all of it. So we refinanced the portion that we could not pay off, but we paid off 2 million early. This one is a redemption only. It's an early redemption. We're not refinancing any bonds at today's interest rates. We're just paying off some bonds early. You conducted the big refunding before, but this one is similar to this slide on slide 8 or page 8. Excuse me, that's not it. My eyes failed me. It is page 5. On page 5, we did a standalone early redemption of the 2010 bonds and the 2011 bonds that were remaining at that time.
Right.
So that was a standalone done in early 2021. The refunding early redemption accelerated principal was conducted in late 2021. But to your point, you have a history of doing these early redemptions, both on a standalone basis and in combination with a refunding.
Understand. So that all makes sense to me, and I understand the 3 million that's being contemplated or proposed right now. It looks like the interest rates to be redeemed, or in that it says on the slide 2 to 2.5, and then on the previous slide it says there's ranging from 2 to 4%.
Yeah, so there's more maturities than what we're actually being able to call in. We're calling in the longest ones first. And so
And they have the lower rates.
they can, yes, yes. But they also have a longer period of interest. So it's do we just cherry pick the biggest outstanding coupon rate, or do we go with the one that's outstanding the longest and get more years of interest savings? And it's kind of the first in, first out approach, knowing that it's not a one and done. This is an ongoing process.
Right.
And you have bigger bonds, bigger principal and bigger coupon rates that are coming up in the future.
That was leading to my next question. With as we contemplate this, I saw in the approaching optional redemptions is
Mhm.
that other slide, and the bigger ones out there have possibly higher interest rates and much longer maturities, to where taking a pragmatic approach, and maybe not necessarily, and I don't know if doing the full amount you're talking about now potentially is the best option, but thinking forward as we have more options in the future, and maybe having a year where we build that balance to have bigger impact a year later. Is that, I'm assuming that's work that you're going to be ongoing and
Exactly.
advising us on.
And that's a great question, because we actually studied it internally as well. It's like, okay, we kind of have this tax-based growth of 15% that is a big number for us. So what is the optimum use of that in the near term? And we went through all of the iterations and options that you talked about. We landed on this one for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's the first in, first out. So it's our oldest bond that we can start moving off our books soonest. Number two is this is not a one and done. It's not our only use. So for example, if you go to the slide, this one here, where you see some 5% coupons.
Right.
Those will be bonds that we may, instead of paying off early, may refinance for savings. So it's not like by doing this with the 13, we're going to forego the options on the other ones. We're going to do something with those, either lower the interest rate or pay down principal, and it's not a one and done. So for example, if I just use the $3 million to go out and, not to get too technical here, but redemption means we have a call date upon us. Defeasance means the call date is in the future and we have to invest the money till that call date. So we can do both. But if I defease, for example, the final maturity that has a 5% coupon of the 15 bonds, that's good. That's a great use of the money. But refunding the 13 bonds is not feasible. It doesn't provide us any savings. paying off the 13 bonds does save us money. Refinancing the 2015 bonds will provide additional savings. So that's where we go to, where's the money best use? And it's in the context of a multi-year decision as opposed to a singular. But you're right, if this was one and done, we would target a different bond for the 3.2 million. But because we're going to pay this one off early and it creates the hole there that you see. So you see in the middle there, there's two bars that are higher than the others.
Yep. That's from the payoff.
Exactly. So those 2015 bonds, when we go to refund those, they may be accelerated right into the position of what you're paying off early, thereby creating additional savings to those from that bigger, higher coupon.
Okay.
It's a great profile to have, by the way. Not all of our districts have this.
Right. Been a good problem for us.
It is a good problem to have these options available. There have been at times when we were trying to build buildings here as quick as possible to house the student population, and there's no doubt that growth puts stress on INS fund and debt service, and it would be the kind of combination of, can we afford to issue this amount of bonds and still pay for it with this tax rate? Those were the questions at one time. Now it's, how can we use it to pay off bonds early and position us for the future?
We had some of those cabs at one point, right?
We did. We did. Cabs are, they got a, this is more information you want, so I'm going to pare down my discussion of it. But cabs at one time got a bad publicity in Texas. They were really overused in California. And there was one gentleman in our district, in our state, excuse me, that was using them for a lot of districts. Overuse would be a fair way to say it. Cabs can be a very, very useful tool for school districts, particularly growing school districts. But the way to describe it is, if you need to hang a picture on the wall, you don't use a sledgehammer. So if we're hanging pictures on the wall, we don't need the sledgehammer. But if we need to go out and rebuild a road, we're going to need a sledgehammer. And so you use the tool that's most appropriate for the circumstance, and you don't overuse either one of them. In your case, there was a modest use and then a conversion and a payoff of them sooner than you ever could have predicted. So again, there was never anything in your bond rating, credit analysis, or otherwise that indicated that there was anything that would be characterized as overuse. It was actually a very protective use with plans to convert it when we could. And now you're, I think, down to zero. I'd have to double check that, but I think we're pretty much way past that arena. By the way, again, cabs got some bad publicity. We actually have to use them, or used to have to use them at times, for refunding bonds. So you would go out and take a $20 million bond program that was outstanding at 4%, and you were going to refinance it at 3%. And the only way we could meet a state law was for the refunding bonds to have some capital appreciation bonds associated with it. So again, they're not a bad tool, just don't use them incorrectly.
Right. Anything I missed?
I was just gonna provide a couple points that I think are important. All of the problems that he might have had several years ago, he shifted to me on the general fund side. So if you do look at the tax rate on the second slide, it is not correct for M&O because that was prior to us receiving the final compressed rate from the state. It is correct on the debt service side, which he enjoys all 50 cents of, so that we can do these kinds of early redemptions. But I just wanted to clarify that. And for those that may not know what the 9.5 million was, so those are bonds that have been approved by the voters, but not yet issued by the district. So what that means is, big picture, with our debt service fund, we have some ability to improve our debt portfolio by doing an early payoff. We still have this 9.5 million available if we have some type of emergency or purchase that we need to make for other things. So we feel like we have kind of this space available to consider this as an option. But I just wanted to provide those couple of notes, and we can address any further questions.
Further questions? From anybody? Any further questions? Thank you for the update.
Yeah, thank you all very much.
Item 11, consider and act on DC local employment practices.
Okay, if you remember, we had discussed DC local, the employment practices at the board workshop. And what we were talking about is that Ms. Cordell had options and the authority to approve personnel contract from March 1st to 31st to August 31st. And we were talking in this market, it's very difficult to hire teachers and employees, especially teachers right now. And we were discussing about giving her more authority to do it throughout the year. We did work with CASB to revise the policy, and these were the suggestions that they made, that Ms. Cordell would be able, that you would delegate her final authority to do that for all positions except principals, directors, and cabinet members. We think those are high interest levels that we would bring before the board and want some discussion and thought for those. But for the teacher coordinators, those types of things, she would have authority to make those decisions and hire those. As I spoke last time, a lot of our districts are going to open contracts, and we actually Tuesday after Labor Day, actually have a career fair that we will be attending at Texas A&M University Commerce for recruiting, looking for like December and January graduates. So anyway, so we are recommending for you to, or the administration's recommending for you to approve DC local employment practices. The policy is attached in the board book. Questions about that?
Clear on the recommendation to amend. Okay. Questions? If not, I need a motion. So move to approve the DC local, Marvin Bobo. Second, Amy Smith. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Next item is item 12. Consider and act on proposed deletion of board policy EF local and adoption of board policy EFA local and EFB local.
Okay, this was also shared during the August board workshop. And what we are recommending is that our current policy EF local that addresses instructional resources and instructional materials, we delete that and create two new policies, EFA local and EFB local. EFA separates what instructional materials are where it does not include library books. So that would just be a standalone. It would include textbooks, supplemental resources for the classroom, any other instructional resources, whether it's hard copies, electronic copies, whatever we're using for teaching and learning purposes. So it's to enrich the educational programming in the classroom. And then EFB local would specify library materials. And so that would include any of the materials that we would have in the library, whether it's electronic or hard copies, any supplemental materials that we would purchase with library funds and have dedicated to the library. So also within this EFB local, we included some verbiage about parental involvement and partnerships when it comes to selection of our students when they are checking out materials in the classroom, in the library, where parents would have some input and some awareness of that. It would also have some protection from some inappropriate material that would be in the libraries. And what we're talking about there is that when we're going through a selection process, the librarians are going through a selection process that is criteria set forth on how they would select those materials for the libraries. And then also an expedited interim review, which is probably the most significant change to this, to where if we had a challenged book in the library and it met certain criteria, where with the penal code, it would be, we would expedite that review by removing that temporarily until the committee had time to review that. So that's the major change to this particular policy. So Just some updates that we are going to have going on right now with our libraries. We're continuing to implement processes for the selection of our library instructional materials and the annual ongoing weeding that we do to make sure that we don't have we have up to date, not out of date materials in the libraries. Also, professional development for our librarians is an ongoing process. We are going to be adding this year that parents will receive a weekly report of the library instructional books or materials that their students have checked out. So an email will be generated every Friday. I believe it's the day we're going to do it, to where the Fallout system that we're using for our collection will generate an email to a parent to let them know what their student has checked out from the library. And then if there are specific instructional library materials that parents do not want their students to check out, they can communicate directly to the campus and have those flagged so that their student would not be able to check those out. So that's not within the policy. That's just some procedures and practices that we're going to be putting in place. The changes, I was waiting for the approval on the policy. I'm going to be meeting with our lead librarian this Friday. So our hope is that we're going to be implementing those emails hopefully by next week.
Instructions from the campuses on parents are interested in taking things off the list, that sort of thing.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Other questions? All right, we need a motion.
Move to make policy changes recommended for EFA and EFB local.
And delete EF local.
And yeah,
So moved. Jeff Wood, second. Julie McLaughlin, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for the work on all of that. Item 13, consider an act on revisions to board policy FNAA local, GKD local, and GKDA local.
So again, this was shared with you at the board workshop earlier this month, and we're just making some updates to the FNAA. It was a little bit outdated. So the information you received, we just replaced some of the verbiage in there based on the TASB model and that's it's based on student expression distribution of non-school related literature. So we just had some clarification with that. And then also with GKD, I'm gonna let Mr. Parker talk a little bit about that.
We had a couple of additions to GKD legal to align GKD local to align it with GKD legal. We needed to update a couple of things. The first one was for us to establish a limited open forum for us to make available our facilities throughout the district. And what that does is it reserves our facilities based on certain topics and certain groups, however, not allowing us to discriminate based on viewpoint of those certain topics and certain groups. The second addition would be to allow groups underneath what is a classification called patriotic societies, such as the Boy Scouts, to let them utilize our facilities to perform their business without making those facilities available to them. So if the Boy Scouts want to come up and have make use of a classroom to have their meetings or a cafeteria, we would allow them to do that. And then there were some additional edits, just some editing pieces. You can see at the bottom, those 4 items that we deleted and added just to make it grammatically correct.
So again, both of these policies had not been updated, and so it's based on the updates with TASB.
Things to FNAA, GKD, and GKDA as recommended.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. James to approve the item 13 as written, and a second by Ann Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item 14. presentation of the 21-22 State Accountability Rating Report. Dr. Tinsley.
Have some great news to share. I know that you've seen some of this out in Connect with Katie and also on social media. We are thrilled to announce that we received a rating, an overall score of 99 out of a possible 100 in our 21-22 accountability rating. We were one of 2 districts in the state that had the highest score, and the other district was a significantly smaller district with under around 250 students. So we have much to celebrate here. So I'm going to walk through here with you a little bit about how we received that rating. So just kind of bear with me. We're looking at 3 areas. We look at student achievement, student progress, and closing the gap. And you can see there in the presentation what we actually scored under each one: 98 out of 100 in student achievement, 93 out of 100 in school progress, and closing the gap 100 out of 100. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with each one. Student achievement is basically what measures whether students met expectations on the STAR test. So that's just your the results that I shared with you back in July. And it also measures our graduation rates and how prepared students are after they leave high school. So when you look at how that's calculated, 40% of that is based on STAR performance, 40% is on our CCMR, which is our college, career, and military readiness, and then our graduation rates. So looking at our STAR performance, we did very well. And in the chart here, you'll see on the areas where we had percentage of students approaching grade level or above. On the right column, you'll see how the state performed. And if you'll look in the middle column, that's the district. So again, we perform significantly higher than the state does. And then in the middle where the blue is, those are the students that met grade level or above. And then again, you can see the comparisons to the state. And then where I think we really need to celebrate here in Lovejoy is the percentage of students mastering grade level or above. That's a significant number and percentage when you look at each group there, where, for example, in all subjects in the state, the average was 23% of the students and Lovejoy was 55%. So shout out to our principals and our staff for such great work on that. Then we look at college and career readiness and military readiness, and that measures, as I mentioned, graduates, how to prepare for college, career, or military. And what I want you to notice here is that we have some areas that, again, the far right column is the state comparison to our district. The overall score based on SAT, ACT, TSIA, and earned credit for a college prep course, our district average was 84% and the state was 41%. So there are some areas that we do want to dig a little deeper in and see if there are some ways that we can adjust that to see if we're offering some of this, for example, in the EARN and the industry-based certification. Those are some areas that we feel like we can make some gains in, looking at some of our certifications through CTE. And we are going to be doing an audit this year of that program to understand where our students, where their interests are and where we can increase that percentage. The same with the level 1 and level 2 certificates, and then the associate's degrees too. So that's where we could produce students that when they enter college, they already have 2 years of college credit. So those are some areas that, again, I'll be coming back next month, hopefully with some more details on that, on additional data and the pathway that we think we can take. Graduation rates were 100%. So that's just, again, that's a great celebration to have here in Lovejoy. So that is all under student achievement. And then the next area is school progress. So this indicates how our students perform over time. And so for Lovejoy, that's looking at how students make gains from year to year. And we have a high percentage of our students that perform fairly high anyway. So there's not a lot of room for growth, if that makes sense. So out of the 3 areas, this is the one that you can take out, and this is the one that we do not, that doesn't actually count for us. So we can choose between the school progress and then the closing the gap. So we were rated on closing the gap in our student achievement. But just to give you an idea of school progress, the way that that's calculated is academic growth, and that's just what I was referring to, and relative performance. So again, it shows the amount of growth students make from year to year. And then we'll be bringing to you more information about this, comparisons to other schools that are similar to campuses. So for example, Custer Elementary will have a list of schools in the state that are similar to demographics and performance to see how they rank up against those other schools. And we'll have more information for you on that too. So if you look at our school progress there, academic growth at 93%, 90 scored to 93. Now, on closing the gap, that tells us how well our district is ensuring that all student groups are successful. And when we say student groups, that we're talking about some subgroups, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. But the way that we calculate that is academic achievement is 50%, graduation rate is 10%, English language proficiency is 10%, and school quality is 30%. So when we look at academic achievement, when we talk about the groups of students that are meeting the set state targets, these are the groups that we look at. We would look at race, we look at special education, continuously enrolled students, English learners, and our economically disadvantaged students. And we do the same with the graduation rates, where we look how our groups of students are meeting performance targets set by the state with the same areas. And then our English language proficiency measures how our emergent bilingual English learners are performing, which we don't really have a really high percentage of those. And then school quality measures where we go back to the CCMR, how prepared our students are for the workforce, college, and military. So you take all of those, and the chart that I'm sharing with you right here, it tells you where the green check mark is where we met the target. So basically we met the target in all areas. And if it's blank, that meant we did not have enough students where it would have counted for us. So we did not have any groups not meet target. So what does the A mean? It means that we serve majority of our students very well. We encourage high academic achievement here and growth for all of our students. And then students are well prepared for success in college and career readiness. So, and it really just reflects, I think, a commitment to recognizing high student achievement and highly effective educators here in Lovejoy. So great information, and we will have more to share with you soon. So any questions?
This is a great start.
Awesome. Yeah.
Really proud of our team
Mhm.
here and the work that's been done to make this reality. So very thankful.
Yeah.
Any questions? All right, perfect. Thank you. And congratulations to the team. All right. Item 15 is our annual progress report on our district improvement plan for the 21-22 school year.
Okay, so we have the 5 priorities here set forth by the district, and this is to give you an update on our performance and all of those 5 priorities and the performance objectives. So we're going to share the mic here on reporting that out. So just some things I want to lift up on priority 1. It has to do with growth in student academic achievement. And if you look at progress target 1, it's the percentage of 3rd grade students that score or meets grade level or above on the STAR reading will increase from 68% to 73% by June 2024. And we are well ahead of that. We met 81% for this year in our 22 STAR results. Also, the same with math, where we were looking at third grade students meeting grade level or above on the STAR math. In third grade, we will increase 65% to 70%. And again, we exceeded that by 76%. On social studies, we did make growth. We had a goal or progress measure 62% to 67% by June 2024. We did grow by up to 64%. However, we do feel like if we can really work on alignment, and I mentioned that before, because the 8th grade test is not what's taught in 8th grade in social study, it's what's taught prior to 8th grade. So that is what that means is that we really need to ensure that what we are doing in the grades below 8th grade, we're preparing our students to be successful on that test. Also on the economically disadvantaged students, we would decrease that from 28% of our students to 20% in all subjects, where you're really closing the gap that I talked about. And we did close that gap. So there's only a gap of 17% right now. And then on masters on grade level on all STAR subjects, from 49% to 59%, we met 55% on that. Next page, the percent of graduates that met the criteria for college, career, and military readiness will increase from 97% to 99%. We had 94%. We do think we have some reasons and some data why that may have dropped somewhat. That can vary sometimes based on the size of the senior class. But again, we really want to dig a little bit deeper into that data, and we'll bring more information to you later on that. On number 7, we'll utilize formative assessment data to differentiate instruction and support student academic growth. We did have some pieces in place for formative assessments, and where our teachers were doing, where we're not waiting to do a summative assessment, but where we're doing assessments regularly through a balanced assessment program. We do feel like those are some areas that we'll be able to dig a little deeper into this year through our PLC framework, when we are looking at those questions. What do we want our students to know? How will we know if they've learned it? What will we do if they haven't learned it? So there's more work to be done on that through PLCs and RTI. And I'm going to let Sancy talk about number 8.
So number 8 really talks about the implementing evidence-based practices that address the needs of students and special programs, positive behavior support interventions, and support. And so we really started that work last year with the needs assessment and really looking at, from the teacher's perspective, what are they needing to help support students in the classroom. Definitely tailored some sessions during Learning in Lovejoy to start that process. I'll talk a little bit later in my cabinet report about the specially designed instructional coaches as we look at going into this year to how to best support and build that capacity. The area that we're still needing to shore up, the last part of this where it talks about support that integrate best practices on grief-informed and trauma-informed care. And the student services department is looking at that, and how do we want to continue to grow and support that for students on the campuses. So that is still a work in progress.
Number 9 is that Lovejoy ISD will implement a comprehensive school counseling program to include guidance, curriculum, responsive services, individual planning, and system support. And over the past year, we've really began to implement that comprehensive school model for school counselors. We've begun training, and really what that tells us or leads us to do is how are counselors spending their time, and making sure that they spend at least 80% of their time, at least 80% of their time in those counseling duties, and not spending them outside of those counseling duties. And so really what we're trying to do is make sure that our students get supported in those areas, and that they're being supported by the appropriate personnel, being school counselors. We've begun the training through that. We're going to continue training not only inside of the district, but also at Region 10 to allow some of the people who are focused on that comprehensive model to come out and make sure that they're guiding us And we're supporting and meeting the needs of our students in the way, in our counseling program, the way that they need to be met.
And you've heard a lot about this already, but Lovejoy will develop a plan for implementation of professional learning communities. We facilitated that. We started some work on that back in the spring where we brought Dr. Noonan in to do some work with our campus teams. And then during Learning in Lovejoy, that was what our framework was for leading the learning. And then we'll be continuing that on September the 6th, where we're going to be going a little deeper into identifying some of our priority standards and having our teachers identify that within their grade level. And then November 7th and 8th, Dr. Noonan is going to be returning for our professional development to do work on the other two questions. What do we want our students? What if our students don't know it? And what will we do if they don't know it? I mean, what will we do if they do know it? Excuse me. So, but we'll go a little deeper into that with our teams and when we come back in November.
Okay, and priority 2 has everything to do with HR. So definitely we want to continue to strive to be recognized as the employer of choice for educators. And that truly goes back to our culture here. Just very inclusive and just a great place to be and supportive. The first one, priority, the first item is recruit and retain highly quality team members. And I think we did that through networking this year, recruiting high quality people, looking at that talent. We hosted a job fair. We worked with finance and providing some financial bonuses in those high needs area. We also tried to recognize people with the Heart of Support and the Heart of Teacher Awards, recognizing Teacher of the Year. And at the end of the year, our celebration, of course, we want to continue to do that and celebrate our employees there. We felt really good because we only had one vacancy the first day of school. We know districts around us were not as fortunate. Some of them had 25 to 100 vacancies. And so we felt very, very fortunate. Of course, we do have that one filled. Also, during that, we also had to look at attrition because we knew to be to follow the financial sustainability goals that we needed to go from 600 employees and go down somewhat. And so currently we have 522. We do have some unfilled positions there, but that also was something that needed to happen. And providing learning opportunities. We did Learning in Lovejoy. We're doing some leadership development with campus administrator and lead teachers, special education, professional development, new teacher training, MTSS, response to intervention, but some opportunities for our teachers to learn and grow too. And of course, we're always looking at ways to refine the interviewing process and our hiring processes. I think part of that is it seems that sometimes that process can be lengthy and we're trying to get those done as quickly as possible. We know background checks can take 24 to 48 hours, but just getting those people interviewed, vetted, checking references for that to happen and to continue to get that top talent there.
All right, so priority 3 of the district improvement plan is that Lovejoy ISD will evaluate all areas which impact the student experience with a sustained focus on continual improvement. That priority goes on to explain the importance of organizational health and effectiveness, as well as long and short-term financial sustainability. So the first performance objective under priority 3 was during the spring of 22, Lovejoy ISD will implement a zero-based budgeting process. As our staff members in the room know, we started before the spring of 22. We started that process before Christmas break. I think I've shared before, I'm just was so pleased with the work that everybody did on that project because it was quite an endeavor, but we ended up saving $300,000 going into this budget year because of that zero-based budgeting process. So I'm very proud of the work done there with the group. The second performance objective of priority 3 is during the 21-22 school year, Lovejoy ISD will launch a financial sustainability committee that includes parents, staff, and community members. So because I do math in my spare time, I thought there's one math problem I have not done yet, and that's how many hours did we spend in the financial sustainability committee meetings last year? We had 40 stakeholders, parents, staff, community members. We had 6 meetings that were about 2 hours each, so about 480 hours were spent of people's personal time to really build collaboration around our financial sustainability. So that occurred from December of 21 through May of 22, with those final recommendations being a big portion of the development and adoption of our budget this year, which will give us a surplus to continue to build our financial sustainability, which was much needed. The third performance objective in priority 3 was during the 21-22 school year, Lovejoy ISD will launch the Lovejoy 2030 strategic planning process that includes students, parents, staff, and community members. So I think Katie's committee was bigger. But 3 great meetings all day. Got to hear from students, community members. It was really fantastic. And I was excited because I got to talk about operations a little bit, in addition to finance, but there was extensive planning processes that went into place as part of that really forward-looking plan. And so 100 Lovejoy ISD stakeholders were a part of that process. And so really proud of the work that's been done there too, and continue to build on that Lovejoy 2030 strategic plan going forward. So priority 4 is next.
Okay, that's me. Priority 4 talks about developing a strong community connection and confidence through effective communication, both internal and external stakeholders. So the first one is evaluate the Lovejoy Scholar Program, including a cost benefit analysis of tuition-based versus non-tuition based. We did work with a demographer and looking at that and at projections, capacity study, all those types of things. We looked at financial models also to evaluate tuition rates. Currently, we have 231 Lovejoy scholars. We have 33 that are new scholars and 198 returning. And so just in tuition alone, that's a little bit over $1 million. So we felt like that was beneficial. Number 2 was implement a third-party communication audit that includes stakeholder feedback and input. We paused this basically for cost, and we felt like there were other priorities right now that need to be addressed. We will look at that again and reevaluate the need there. And then the last one was initiate development of partnerships with businesses, higher education, community organizations to benefit students, staff, and the district. We are currently doing that. We've developed partnerships with TAMU Commerce, looking at T-class grants, also looking at, I know I've become involved with the Chamber, Fairview Allen Chamber of Commerce, Business Industry Leader Panel was incorporated in strategic planning, and also at Learning in Lovejoy, which was helpful. And dedicated staff. I know Dr. Tinsley hired some dedicated staff to promote and initiate partnerships there.
Yeah, and that was based on restructuring so that we could have dedicated staff to some areas that we had some gaps in. So we have someone right now that is a new coordinator that we restructured that position that is going to be looking at partnerships with higher ed and some business opportunities. The other piece on here also is that we have been in discussion, and we're going to be meeting with one of our local credit unions next week over at the high school to possibly put a center of credit union location over there for our students to actually work in a financial literacy center over there for our students. And then also looking at we also we visited Collin College Technical Center. And when I was referring earlier to some of our CCMR, there are some opportunities and some certifications that we feel like we can capitalize on for some of our students in partnership with Collin College.
And speaking of Collin College, something else that we found out is Collin College offers a work study program that we're looking into this fall. And so basically we can have some interns work with us and then they pay them. We do not pay them. So we have put some job postings out there for HR, communications, those types of things. So it's a student that could work with us that's getting a degree, and actually the funding would come through work study.
Priority 5 addresses safety and security throughout the district. And the first part of priority 5 is the implementation of additional communications throughout the district. And as you all know and are well versed in, what we've done to enhance over the past year to 2 years our communication plan and communication resources that we have throughout the district. The first couple being a call patch service, which allows someone who's responding to an emergency to call, who we use now a third party, to put them in contact with a managing director. So we have managing directors who are Mr. Littlefield, Ms. Tinsley, and myself. And so instead of a person who's responding to an emergency having to give us a call, they call this service, and that service does the calling for them, so that person can really address the task at hand or the emergency at hand. Next is a call bridge service, which allows numerous people, an unlimited number of people, to call in, be connected on one phone call to really determine what actions need to be taken in response to an emergency. So do we need to call 911? Do we need to have a nurse? Do we need to have counselors on site? So we can make those decisions in one phone call as opposed to having to make multiple phone calls and really saving a significant amount of time. Finally, as you know, we have upgraded our communications as far as radios throughout the district. And then also too, in the next couple of weeks, we'll have our cell phone repeaters installed to increase our cell phone coverage throughout the district as well. The second facet of Priority 5 is our monthly drills, or our not necessarily monthly, but periodic drills that we that occur throughout the year. You can tell the approach from our campus administrators and how urgent they are to make sure that it's not just a checkbox that we check off to make sure that they're done. Most of them, if not all, really implemented or went through their drills in the first week of school to make sure that our kids knew what to do in the event of an emergency. It doesn't do us a whole lot of good to wait until October to do a lockdown drill. We need to get that done the first week of school, so our kids already have in mind what happens in the event that we have to go into a secure lockdown. And then number 3 is the implementation of a behavioral threat assessment team. And this, if you've never seen this behavioral threat assessment team in action, if you will, it's pretty impressive because there's 5 people who make up this threat assessment team for the district. It's Stephanie Kranz, Ms. Fuller, Mr. Littlefield, myself, and Angie Lindblom, who's our social worker. And we are tasked with representing different facets of a threat assessment, and those facets are nursing, counseling, somebody who has served in a campus administration role, and then security. And what happens for that threat assessment team, and we've actually had to implement that a couple of times even over the past 2 weeks, is when a student makes a threat, either verbally or behaviorally, this threat assessment team comes together and tries to determine, number one, how significant is that threat? How urgent is that threat? What does our response need to be? What actions do we need to put into place? And also too, in the part that I didn't recognize or realize is, how do we support the student who made that threat from a social standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, to make sure that they have the resources that they need? Because if you make a threat like that, you're experiencing something made you say that, something made you do that. And we don't need to just eliminate their needs as well. So it was really, you never want to have to come together, but in the event that we do, which we have, it's nice to see that child is also taken care of and supported in a way to get them the help, whatever help that they might need. And so our next step in that is to establish campus threat assessment teams. There is a full day of training that goes into being trained on threat assessments, how to respond to those threats. That's done through the Texas Security School Safety Committee, or Center, this Texas School Safety Center. So there's a full day of training that goes into not only establishing what that threat assessment team is, but how to respond. So it's a great tool that we have. And we have some people who have the best interest of kids at heart when we do come together.
So that is a summary of our progress that we made this past year on our district improvement goals. We'll be coming forward in October with our proposal and approval for our district improvement goals for 22-23, and campus plans will follow that as well. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you for the update. Everybody doing okay? All right. Item 16, presentation on House Bill 3. I don't know if we need a quick break.
We're good.
Presentation on House Bill 3, early childhood literacy, early childhood math, college, career, and military readiness, proficiency goals, and present progress measures.
Okay, you saw these goals embedded in the district improvement plan. That is a requirement from House Bill 3, but I'm going to walk through now with you the statute and what it explains that boards are responsible for. And this is just really up for discussion. This is not for approval tonight. So House Bill 3 requires that school boards adopt detailed plans developed by their management teams that contain detailed, specific, quantifiable goals in 3 areas. So I'm going to go into the 3 areas for you. The first area is early childhood literacy proficiency, early childhood math proficiency, and then college and career military readiness. So when we develop goals for the early childhood literacy and math, we're developing those goals for the performance on the 3rd grade math and 3rd grade reading assessments. It's not, those are the only ones that are required for House Bill 3. The plan must include progress measures when we are looking at what we're doing in pre-K through 2nd grade in these 2 core content areas so that our students are proficient when they finish 3rd grade in those 2 areas. Also, that has to align with the mandate that we use assessments for getting a benchmark of where our students are and the growth measure that we'll have at the end of the year within each of those. So then for the goals for the college, career, and military readiness, we look at academic proficiency on instruments such as ACT, SAT, TSI, AP exams, and dual credit performance. The career ready, have they completed some of those industry-based certifications that I was referring to earlier that we feel like we could make some changes with that to get more students involved in those. And then also looking at our special education students and their success in the workforce and placement there. And then with military ready, enlisting in armed forces and reporting to basic training. We'll look at percentages there as well. So when I said quantifiable goals, measurable goals, so each goal must contain a baseline. So what is our current state? And then a target. So what are we shooting for? And then looking at the population of students that we want to measure. And then we look at the month and the year as well too within that goal. So that's what we call in education SMART goals, basically. These annual targets must be included for each goal in addition to a 5-year target. So over time, are we making progress over those 5 years? And then, of course, the board adopts the outcome of the goals and progress measures for each of those areas with literacy, math, and CCMR. So just to let you know, and I referenced this when we were going over the district improvement goals, we had a goal where the percentage of our 3rd grade students would score meets grade level or above on STAR reading. We would increase from 68% to 73% by June 2024. And again, we far exceeded that this year. The same with math. We would increase from 65% on 3rd grade to 70% by June 2024, and we exceeded that as well. And then the same percentage that I gave you earlier too on our CCMR performance. Okay, so these are the proposed literacy goals. Is that we would have the percent of 3rd grade students that score meets grade level or above on STAR reading will increase from 81% to 87%. I'm going to have to go back to my goals here. I can't read sideways here on the slide. So excuse me, let me get to my book. So from 81% to 87% by June 2025. So again, we're pushing that out several years. So you can see where we are this year at 81% and where we want to arrive in 2025. We also break that down by the student groups that I talked about earlier as well too. So how are we going to do that? So we're going to look at, first of all, our kindergarten students that are reading on grade level or above will increase from 79% to 85% by June 2025. So what we had this year, we had 79% of our students that were on grade level by the end of kindergarten. What are some strategies that we would use? We have had all of our kindergarten teachers and our special education teachers who support kindergarten complete the Texas Reading Academies. And if they're new to our district and they did not complete it, they're currently going through the Reading Academy now. We're going to be increasing frequency of progress monitoring. And when I talked about a balanced assessment plan earlier, what are some ways that we're doing not just formal assessments, but either through like running records, through just observation of teachers. There's different ways that we can measure the progress and intervene as appropriate. A culture of collaborative team planning. So what that basically means is that kindergarten teachers, they're looking at all their kids together. They're just not looking at the students in their classroom, but what are we doing as a team and how can we be interdependent on each other to possibly share students? If teacher A is really having success, what is she doing to help, to share those ideas? So that's through that professional and learning communities framework. Again, the use of common formative assessments, intentionality on intervention, and also enrichment. We have a lot of kids that come to us reading. So what are we doing to extend learning for those students? And then we're going to be implementing this year, and you'll see this on most of the slides. We're putting in place vertical teams of teachers. So we're going to have a literacy vertical team that you will have representatives from pre-K all the way up through 12th grade, so that we're creating some alignment and some common practices, and also having teacher voice at some decision making with teaching and learning planning here in the district. So progress measure 2 looks pretty much the very same. It's just that it's referring to first grade and the percentages are going to be a little different there. But again, the strategies are very similar. And then the same with second grade. So if we can increase those percentages in those lower grades, then we feel like that we're going to meet our goals in third grade. So any questions about the literacy goal? So early childhood math goals. We're proposing that our students, third grade students will meet grade level or above on STAR math and will increase from 76% by 85% by June 2025. And again, you see the targets there. One of the things that you may see a little different, I'm going to talk basically the same piece that you're going to see this in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. But one of the things when you look at the strategies, we have been awarded a grant through Texas Education Agency on building a math framework. And the goal is to really strengthen our foundational math programming through this grant. So we're excited about this opportunity. We think we can take the concept and transfer it to other content areas too. So we were one of a few districts in the state that we're the kind of on the ground floor of this new grant. So we hope that that's going to really help us in some of our math development here. And we do see that as an area that we feel like we can make some gains. So again, it's just the same basically for each grade level. And then college, career, and military readiness. Our goal here is that our percentage of graduates that, let me go back here, that meet the criteria for CCMR will increase from 96% to 98%. This is an area that we think if we can get this in check, that we might be 100 out of 100 maybe on our school rating, but we'll see. But this is an area that we really feel like we can make some gains. So again, when we look at, these are what the progress measures would be, is that graduates would meet the Texas Success Initiative criteria in both ELA and math, and that will increase from 85% to 90%. And it just talks about some of the strategies is that we would be implementation of the Texas College Bridge, a program in English and in math, embed CCMR strategies in both ELAR and math, and then data meetings with our CCMR counselor at the high school and our teachers, and then systematic targeted instructional support to meet students' academic needs during leopard time.
Can I add one thing? I
Mhm.
think just adding the CCMR counselor has been great, because that's brand new.
Absolutely.
And the idea that every student at the high school level will have, then her website tells you what to do as a freshman, what to do as a sophomore. I think that's brilliant. So if that doesn't get you closer to the 100 you want, I mean.
We're already
you're
there.
well
We're
on
getting
your
there.
way. Whoever decided to do that, thank you very much. I think it's really good for all the kids there, so.
What the Texas College Bridge program is?
I'm going to defer that to Mary here. Mary, can you talk a little bit about the College Bridge program? She's more the expert in that than me. If that's okay.
Sure.
The Texas College Bridge program is a course set up through the state of Texas where students can take an online program supported by a teacher here in the district to earn their to become TSI qualified, and that helps them to become CCMR or college career military ready. So you can become college career military ready through several different avenues, like complete an AP course, earn a certification, score at a certain rate for SAT, ACT, and another one is also to pass the TSI or College Bridge course. So it's one of our indicators. The past 2 years, we have had math in the district and the students have done very well. We added English this year, so we're pretty hopeful that they have to qualify in English and math, so we'll have a higher rate of success.
Thanks.
Progress measure 2 is that we're looking at AP exams in any subject area of increasing those percentages. And again, that's through our College Board mentoring for our individual teachers. We do have some teachers that we to give as they're moving into some of these positions and supporting that, we do have some coaching that we've contracted with some coaches with to help some of our teachers in that area. Professional learning workshops dedicated just for our AP our teachers. Bree Smith, our Director of Advanced Academics, is leading some of this. And then again, our district-wide vertical team meetings, this will be a part of that as well, too. And then again, back to the industry-based certifications, we have a goal to increase that by 31% to 45%. And hopefully through our audit this year, we're going to get a better idea of where we stand. And we also feel like we're missing some funding opportunities with that as well. We're not tapping into that. So hopefully we're going to get some more information. So what the proposed goals are, I just laid them out here for you. Again, we wanted you to have time to discuss this and answer any questions you may have, and then bring it forward next month for approval of these goals. Good. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions about that presentation? I did get a chance to sit in. I'm on the CTE council. Is that what I'm on? I know I work with Miss Gaddy, and our teachers are excited about those efforts, I will tell you, and there's energy organically around the desire to grow that. So I thought that was enjoyable to be a part of. Item 17, consider an act on capital projects related to fine arts, athletics, and security.
Good evening. So we had a few small projects come up as needs in the last month or so. And so we wanted to share some information with you about that. They include these 3 items. First, the high school band parking lot area. Second, the high school softball field. And third, some district-wide exit alarms. So if you have not been out to the high school near the multipurpose building and attempted to park your vehicle, you might not have seen this, which occasionally presents a challenge for folks trying to identify their parking space. And in addition to that, in the same general area, where some construction happened recently in the past year, in addition to just your basic weathering, because this has been kind of exacerbated by the construction that took place. These lines really do need to be repainted for safety. And in addition to allowing the band students to properly practice the field exercises that they had those painted for, as well as the dots for placement. As a former band student, we didn't have dots, and I'm sure that that's why we did not march nearly as well as our students do today. This is the softball field. And so you'll see there's some areas that have some padding needs for safety for our athletes. And so that's another area that's been noted. And last but not least, you might have heard what I have now borrowed the term, the sound of safety in some of our facilities when our exit doors are left ajar for a certain period of time. You'll hear a noise that's designed to indicate that a door has been left open. Because of all of the work that the safety and security team and the maintenance team have been doing and checking these, we found several areas where we just need to replace parts and fix things. So we do need to buy some spare batteries and equipment to keep these up to date and make sure we have those in stock and aren't waiting to order them. So these 3 projects altogether total $23,798. And you see the breakdown on the slide there. Each of these have been vetted and are with approved vendors that we can get, and were the low quote received or were with existing district vendors. So I'm excited. Again, just want to repeat that we are going to be doing capital plan development for the longer term. We talked a little bit earlier this evening about the INS and debt service budget. So we will be kind of developing a more long-term plan. But again, these were just some immediate needs that came to the surface. And we do have current bond funds in our accounts that we could use to pay for these projects, thereby keeping it off of our general fund side as well, since they are deemed capital projects. Any questions?
So softball, they're not in their actual season right now. Band, I think they are. How quickly, and what's the plan to get it painted so that they can quickly have their dots?
It would happen pretty quickly. It will probably take longer to get the PO in place than it will for them to complete the work.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. The company is a company I've used in the past. They're very quick, and our band group has a good relationship with this company as well. So they're very quick and accustomed to coming out and doing that. But also this is not typically the time, right, when people are doing that type of work. So we'll have to coordinate, of course, with the activities going on at the high school and make sure we're not painting while there's an event going on. But shouldn't be too long.
They'll probably be very happy to hear that. So
Yes.
thank you.
Other questions? Not, we entertain a motion. So moved, Ann Smith. Second, Julie McLaughlin. All in favor?
Aye.
Favor? Whatever. All opposed? All in favor? All right. Item 18, consider and act on class size exemption resolution.
Okay. Just wanted to share with you what our current class sizes are, averages. They look really great. I'm real excited. Our high school class size average 24 to 27. Every once in a while, we may have one at 29 or 30, but for the most part, when you're looking at the core classes, science, history, English, they're between 24 and 27. Willow Springs, 23 to 27, Sloan Creek, 22 to 24, and then Hart, right under 22, and Pester, around 21. I think that goes to our demographer and some of the work that was done previously, earlier, that we were able to, get that close in staffing with those projections. That truly helps. When we look at each by grade level, you can see in kindergarten, we actually hired for first grade, but we weren't sure, who was coming. So we ended up moving that teacher to kindergarten, and we were glad we did. We were right at 101 in kindergarten at Hart, and first grade, we have 91 students, second grade, class average 21, third grade 22.8, and fourth grade. So you'll see there, we will need 7 waivers. We need, and the reason for that being is currently we have 23 students in first grade in 3 classrooms there. And third grade, we have also 23 in 4 of those classrooms. In fourth grade, we have to ask for a waiver because we have a GT class. It's all GT because we cluster those at 24. So that's why we're asking for a waiver, because you can see the class average is small, but the GT class happens to be, it's basically maximizing our resources there at Hart. Also, just to know on all of those where we are asking for waivers, we do have student teachers at Hart to help out too. Many of them are graduating in December, so we may be hiring. Cluster class sizes also look fairly good. Kindergarten 2021, first grade 20.5, second grade 22.8, third grade 21.83, and fourth grade. Once again, I think we did a great job of staffing there. We will be asking for 3 waivers in third grade there. I'm sorry, second grade. We'll be asking for 3 waivers there. So we have a few at 23 there. Okay. And I just wanted to review what that maximum class size exemption waiver is. Basically, we have what I'm asking for tonight is a resolution. So anytime a class does, we have 30 days to notify. We have to apply for the waiver with the state, with TEA. Once we apply, they usually approve it, and then we have to notify parents within 30 days of that happening. So that's the information there. We also, of course, are going to look at, it always goes back to student needs. What are campus needs right now? Those classes are looking really good. And we do have some student teachers in some areas that we need them to be in. We look at disruption of student schedule. If we were to add a teacher right now and had to move kids out of classrooms, I don't know how many parents, would volunteer. And talking to our administrators and of course that highly qualified applicant, we want someone that will do a good job in there, and looking at financial impact also. So those are some things that we look at there. So my recommendation, of course, is if you want to discuss, is to consider and act on the resolution for the class size exemption waiver. Once again, as I said, anytime we ask for a waiver, we will notify you and parents. Okay, so that's what our recommendation is. That the Board of Trustees approve the class size exemption waiver resolution. Questions for me?
Did you also come back and talk to us about what waivers you continue to have on a 30-day basis?
Yes, every time, like for example, we will ask for these 9, and if another class goes beyond the 22, the 1 ratio, I'll bring that back for you. This is just so I don't have to get it board approved. So if a class goes above it, we don't have to bring it back to the board meeting. And also it kind of gets tricky in some of those holiday months. If one happens to go above, we're monitoring that, and we can always tell by enrollment packets. So I kind of have a heads up on that. Yes, but yes, well, you'll always know, you'll always be notified, and so will the parents. We're legally required to do that. Notify the parents for that. Good question.
I also like to hear that y'all are augmenting those classes with additional assistance through the additional aids.
Yeah.
So we're not just causing just more work for an individual teacher, and therefore student outcomes suffer. They get assistance.
And sometimes what happens is our teachers come back and say, hey, we got a great team and we can do this. And sometimes it's better to keep it that way. I will tell you, at Pester, we do not have a student teacher there. They're at Hart, just so that for your awareness there. We'll look for one for in the spring though too. Any other questions for me?
There are no other questions. Need a motion.
Consider that we approve the class size exemption resolution.
So moved, Marvin Bobo. Second, Jeff Wood, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 19, cabinet reports.
Good evening. So we wanted to just share some updates on finance and operations. First, a couple of items in the finance area, just to keep you up to date on what has been going on. We did have our auditor, Carl Deaton, from the firm that the board engages to do our financial audit, come visit us. They did their site visit. They stay with us for a week. And so gather a lot of data. And so they were very complimentary of the work of especially Thomas Willman and our finance department, our payroll department, our HR department, providing all of the information that they requested. So they'll be working on that, and they'll bring forward, of course, their report later in October, November timeframe. We also wanted to share some information that we have put out on the website so that people know where our information is related to the VA and how to access it. So I'm going to share a couple things on that here, and an update on a risk management award that the district received. So you'll see here that you can visit the website lovejoyisdvatre.net to gather any information that you would want to know related to the voter approved tax ratification election that will go forward to the voters at the November general election on November 8th. And so Jack is going to help me kind of get to the website and show you where some of this information is. If you do go to the district website, it's hyperlinked directly from the homepage, and it will take you here. And so you can kind of scroll through. It's been designed into 3 steps. We've released first step 1, which is really about school finance concepts. And so you can see this information here. You can select any of the topics, and it will hyperlink you directly to that area. And so you can kind of see there's lots and lots of information on here. But we'll also point out that step 2 gives you a little bit more about the current budget outlook of the district. So you can also see that information here. And again, there's hyperlinked data. If there's something in particular that you want to jump to, you can get right there and then go back. Anytime you scroll down at the bottom, there's going to be a hyperlink button to take you right up back to the top. And so you'll see a lot of the data that we've gone through at our board meetings or the Financial Sustainability Committee meetings, and so on and so forth. So step 3 will be coming soon, and that will be more about the actual election day data. You'll also see across the top that there's several items that are hyperlinked. And the first of those, one of those is the VA FAQs. So you can click on that, and you can click on the red circle, and it will take you to a Google form. We've already received a couple of responses, but if you have a question about the VA that has not been addressed on the website, or you would like to know more information, you can click on that and submit your question. There's also a link across that top red right bar that says request a presentation. So you can also complete that. And if you have a community or civic group in the area that meets that would like to have a presentation to learn more about it or ask questions, you can fill that form out there as well. So we just wanted to we talked a lot about the details, but wanted to share this informational resource that anybody can access pretty easily to get the information that they may want on the VATRE. All right, and so that information is also linked in the presentation in the board book if you'd like to access it there. The next item I wanted to share was that we received an award from TASB Risk Management. Lovejoy ISD was awarded the Risk Management Fund Excellence Award, which is really designed to recognize districts that are applying solutions to risk management issues. So the application was submitted by Tina, and she was here a moment ago. I think she left. She didn't know that I was going to say this about her. So she submitted this because of the work that really she organized a lot of around getting rid of the portables, getting our staff and our stuff inside of permanent facilities really helps facilitate safety, as well as obviously we got the revenue from selling something that we were no longer using. So a lot of benefits were received from that. And so the district also gets $1,000 honorarium for the award. So Tina's not one to let me take a picture of her. So this is her in the hallway trying to fix the shredder because somebody got it jammed. And she will tell you also, she was not the one to fix it. It took about 7 people, but it eventually did get fixed. Thank you, technology department. But she is just one of those that kind of jumps in and does a lot of odds and ends. Yes, she's over purchasing, but also risk management, also a lot of other things. So I just wanted to, if you see Tina, tell her, thank you for that. It was nice to see that come through. In terms of facility project updates, I wanted to thank HR for all their work on the auxiliary job fair that happened on July 23rd. We did hire a couple people and they're there, picture proof. So we're happy to have any help that we can in our auxiliary departments. We still have about a 17% vacancy rate in custodial and more than that, 20-25% in student nutrition. So they're working very hard. I'm very proud of them. And so I was glad for every, 2 or 3 or 4 people that we can get. And that was a big help. Our salvage items, we're still kind of going through and cleaning up and moving things around. So you may see some things moving around still in the space. I know we talked about the playground, so we're going to finish up fencing there hopefully soon. The gym floors are complete. Power factor correction is complete. The playground equipment for Puster will probably happen over Christmas break. That's one of those things that has an extraordinarily even longer than normal lead time at this point. But just wanted to kind of give you a brief update on where some of those projects are and show you some pretty pictures. So this is the brand new floor at the auxiliary gym at Sloan Creek. It looks phenomenal. You will notice there are no holes. There are no watermarks. So they did a really good job with it. We also screened and recoded the Willow Springs Middle School gym floor. And the high school auxiliary gym floor is here, as well as the competition gym floor. Looked amazing when they were done with that one. So we were glad to be able to start the school with some good looking gym floors that really, more importantly, provide safety for our players. And then this is the not nearly as attractive, but yet interesting capacitor bank picture. Wanted to show you one. It looked like actually installed in the electrical room, since you'll probably never see it. But this equals savings. So.
Love those.
Anytime. On the safety projects we discussed recently. So we have installed the security doors and locks around this facility in the Child Development Center. Cell phone amplifiers have been ordered. They're expected to come in sometime soon, maybe in the next month. The sidewalk at the high school athletic area has been completed. And the additional entry for the Child Development Center will likely happen around Thanksgiving break due to the lead time on the doors. So again, just wanted to keep you updated on those items. All of the technology grants on the technology side for the foundation have been funded. So people are having fun ordering those items. And we did apply for some grant funding and are waiting to hear if we may get that for additional technology items. And so just kind of wanted to provide you with those brief updates. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I do have a question around food service and custodians. I know, do I remember you offered incentive for attendance or referral, but
We
then
did
I thought
attendance last year.
are we doing anything to incentivize and retain the hardworking people who are filling in gaps?
That's a great question. So Matt and I talked specifically very recently about student nutrition. Frankly, after I observed some of the schools and it's just challenging. And having those continued vacancies on the student nutrition side is probably the most painful point right now because they have the highest vacancy rate. So one of the things that we did talk about is if we end up in the next few weeks having not been able to fill the positions as we were not able to fill last year, then we may bring forward a recommendation to do an attendance incentive for student nutrition. Our primary focus was to try to make sure we could fill those. But that may be something that we bring forward, particularly for that area, because it is the highest vacancy rate and because the funds that we save on the student nutrition side, they're in a different fund, so they won't benefit the district financially by retaining that savings. Good question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to give an update, some results from Learning in Lovejoy with our campus teamwork. We had, as mentioned earlier, we had 3 days with all of our staff. And on the third day, our campus teams met to actually use the learning that they had acquired the first 2 days and apply that and assess where they were as a team on moving forward with supporting this framework of learning communities. So this was centered around tight elements that you would see within a high functioning professional learning community team. And so what they did, we looked at the 6 areas, we're assessing where they were, how they work in collaboratively, not in isolation, their shared responsibility, the interdependency. Also, looking at, are we ensuring that we are implementing a guaranteed and viable curriculum? Do we have common assessment? Do we have a balanced assessment plan in place that we're implementing with fidelity? And do we have a system of interventions and enrichment and extension for our students? And then also, how are we finding evidence? How are we determining if our students are making progress? So they took these 6 areas. They actually they did a kind of a needs assessment. Each teacher did a kind of a checklist of where they thought they fell on that working as a team, and then they did it as a team. So kind of get a baseline. So then we centered that back around our areas of relationships, learning, collaboration, results, and of course, fun. They also measured it when we talk about our organizational culture. So where do we really fall in this? Are we functioning as a campus at a surface in our culture, or are we down here in deep culture where our actions and our attitudes and our words align with what we talked about in the team there? So, each campus team was charged with determining what was most important for the campus and moving forward as a professional learning community. How will we do it? So they came up basically with an action plan. How are we going to be tight? When we say tight, what are we going to hold each other accountable for? And then how are we going to monitor our progress? So the principals are going to be reporting back as a team on this coming Wednesday during our monthly district and campus leaders to kind of see where we are. And I think the value with this is that each campus is at a different level and a different step in this. So we want to honor that, but we also want to keep moving forward where if we're going to have professional learning, that it's meaningful and we apply it. So you're going to see these things woven throughout the work that we're doing. So excited. So
I wanted to lift up a couple of the structural changes in special education. You heard me preface it a little bit when I came up earlier, and we added 2 coordinators. So number 1, that's just one of me. At number 2, we have 2 special education coordinators, and I'll talk a little bit about what their roles are. The nice part, one of the coordinators, we were able to cover 80% of her salary out of federal funds through special education, and the other 20% would be local. And then the second coordinator, due to resignations and shifting and allocations of duties, we were able to really be a cost. It was a neutral. We just shifted and the role of that individual. She also is a special education coordinator and also supports our dyslexia program. We have 3 specially designed instructional coaches, and I'll talk a little bit about what their role is. Design wise, we have 1 instructional coach that serves both of the elementary campuses, 1 instructional coach that serves Sloan Creek and Willow, And then the third one is at the high school and will also support the early childhood special education program that's here. And you're probably thinking, okay, that's a wide range from high school to early childhood, but the individual that's in that position has worked at both ends. So she definitely brings some nice pieces to the table. The other part that's really nice, because their role is building capacity, and all three of them not only have taught special education, but they've also taught general education. And again, that brings just another skill set to the table, because a lot of their work will be supporting general education staff and building their capacity of supporting students who receive services. And then 17 case managers, really what that equates to, those are special education teachers. So those really are the go-to that are supporting throughout the district. That would be from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. So really, when we started at the first visual of really where some of the things that I get the opportunity in the district to do is really provide support and advisory roles for our campuses, and really get to support the special education coordinators and our special design instructional coaches. And it was really nice. We meet with the instructional coaches on Fridays and just really listening to the great work that they've already just started on the campuses and building relationships. And one of the coaches shared that a teacher on the campus said, "I don't think I've ever been asked this many times, do you need help?" And so it was just nice. Just some of it is just getting out there and seeing where the needs are and getting early adopters to being open to having some coaching sessions. Continuing to look at developing and facilitating the learning, not only for special education, but also for our dyslexia program. Building capacity, definitely I get the great opportunity to walk it with our campus leaders and the work that they do every day supporting students on their campuses. And they do a great job of sometimes just needing a think partner as they're thinking through how to support the program on their campus. And really collaborating not only from the budget and being fiscally mindful and prudent, but also making sure that we're supporting students and that we have the curriculum that we need to support all of the students in our program, meeting compliance, and then making sure that we are providing that support to our teachers. And so one of the things that we're doing, you heard me say case managers, what equates to our special education staff. Right now, we're meeting with them weekly and just making sure as the school year has gotten up and running, there's been some shifts. How do we make sure that we're answering their questions, that we're supporting them, and doing some hands-on learning in small chunks, and developing them for success on the campus. Again, I mentioned our special education coordinators. That is a new role. Their main job, their support for the campuses. They also are heavily involved in developing our specially in design instructional coaches. And it was really nice. We had some team building opportunities before school started, because we had a couple of classrooms that just really needed some cleaning and purging and moving furniture. And so one of them was one of the rooms that we have at Lovejoy High School. And so myself, the two coordinators, and all of our instructional coaches went over, and we started there. Some of it was just cleaning some of the stuff, just dusting and getting things ready, purging files. But when the teacher arrived, he was overwhelmed that it was just this, hey, all hands on deck army helping him to get ready. He was able then to just take it and make it his own. So we were moving furniture. He definitely was blown away, but really it's that the nice collaborative effort with everyone there just wanting to support. The coordinators also will be involved in facilitating professional learning, which they've already jumped in and started doing that, providing support to campus administration during learning walks and highlighting best practices. Again, their role along with ours is to partner with our campus administration and continue to build their capacity. And they're in special education. What's always unique is every student definitely has their own plan and needs. And so it's not always as black and white. So how do we walk it and make sure that we're supporting all students? And then just collaborating. So the nice part, our special education coordinators are in the same room with the content coordinators. And so it's nice just to hear the conversation and the discussions going on. And we meet weekly with them to make sure that really there's alignment, whether it's curriculum resources, whether it's behavior support, and really having both facets of how we support and provide that information to campuses. So it's been a really nice opportunity for everybody involved. So our specialty design instructional coaches, so what does that mean? And really, again, we want them to look at best instructional practices, working with special education teachers, with general education teachers. They're great think tank and partners. They're going to get in, they're in collaborative planning. They're going to observe in the classroom and help provide some of those instructional strategies and resources that many times teachers, they want to always do the right thing. And sometimes they're just out of some of the things in their toolbox. So this is another lens that will be able to help support them. They will also help with some of the training on the campus as well to support that growth. And this really, some of the work where this came out of was from the needs assessment that we conducted last school year. And really the feedback that we received was what are ways that we can continue to support our students who receive services, because in our district, by and large, most of our students who receive services through special education are in a general education class either all or most of their day. And so we want to make sure that we arm the teachers with those strategies and skills to support. And our general education staff really are our content experts. So how do we partner in some of the things that are especially design instruction side that special education brings to the table, and then also walking it with the content experts. Our campus administrators, really, we look at supports and how do we make that work? Again, that collaboration is important, and we are very blessed. I say that all the time when we're in interviews or even talking to parents who are considering coming to the district, because our campus administrators are really embrace and they partner and really want to make sure that they have the latest and greatest to support all students on their campus. And that doesn't happen in all school districts. So we have some great leaders that are supporting students. Their role would be to facilitate ARD meetings. And that really means they're following the agenda. By no means are they doing the ARD paperwork, but they're really keeping the meeting, making sure we're adhering to the time frame that we've set forth to the meetings. If things start getting a little bit out of off the rails, or sometimes parents may want to go a little further and we're not there yet, they can really help guide that and facilitate that, where it's a great time for parents to feel valued and share what they want to about their student, but help keep the meeting within a structure. They're the go-to to address concerns that are not resolved at the case manager level. And I have a slide at the end because sometimes we get the question, well, who do I call? What if I have a question? And so there is a visual, but definitely our campus administrators, they want to know if there's a concern from a parent, if it can't be resolved from the case manager level. There also would be kind of that next level in communication. And then definitely planning the master schedule, student programming, and staffing support needs. Where we've been, I think, take partners sometimes on the master schedule is sometimes it's kind of like when you've written a paper and you've looked at it and you're like, I think it's ready, but someone else looks at it and finds a mistake and you're like, I missed that. Sometimes that happens in the master schedule. It's small little tweaks. And again, I appreciate their partnership to say, hey, can another set of eyes look at this so we can be efficient, but still take care of students. Our general education teachers, definitely planning and teaching collectively, collaboratively with teams. That's important for our special education teachers and our general education staff that are in collaborative planning together, looking at data, having student talks, what's working, what's not working, monitoring progress, collaborating with the case manager. Sometimes it's pulling in if there's some areas on the behavior side. Is it pulling in either the campus counselor or a BCBA to help support and be a think partner with them. And then also they definitely have an integral part in communicating with parent and campus professional learning community. And you heard me say, yes, parents have a case manager, and we built that in place. So sometimes students have multiple people that are supporting a student. Sometimes it may be hard for a parent to know, where do I start? but they can also reach out to the general education teacher as well. They're going to be just as knowledgeable what's going on in the classroom. So nothing wrong with reaching out to them. And then our case manager provides specially designed instruction, academic and behavior supports. Their role also is to monitor grades and IEP progress. They also do that in conjunction with the general education teacher because many times there's shared goals or shared instruction that's going on. They're responsible for scheduling ARDs and taking care of the ARD paperwork. That's been pretty consistent with their role has always been responsible. And then also, again, you see communicate with parent and campus professional learning community. And so here's a visual on really who should I call? And it really starts at the campus. The case manager, the general education staff, most of the time, they're going to have a lot of those answers. If there's some things that are specific to a student's programming, and when it says on here about related services, so that could be if a student received occupational therapy or physical therapy, there may be some specific questions that the case manager may have to get some answers or refer to one of those professionals. But definitely we want to make sure that's a starting point. If it's not resolved there, then definitely the campus administrator would want to know and wants to be a problem solver and another lens to be able to look through whatever concerns that the parent has brought forth. Following the flow of this district level support, so that could be the coordinators that are here. It could also be a lot of our related service staff members. So when I say that, that's occupational therapy, physical therapy, special education counselors, assistive technology. They're housed here but serve all campuses. So it could be a question that they may be able to help resolve. And then really the special education director, myself, definitely I'm happy to help answer questions. Most of the time when I get a call, I will listen, but I always have to go back to the campus administrator because they're going to know what's going on their campus to get the answer. And I do try to bridge them together because the students on their campus, but sometimes it is hard when there's multiple people on a student's team to know where to start. And I would say this would be just as applicable for a student who did not receive services. Most teachers, just as a teacher myself, I would want someone to start with me to say, hey, here's my concern or my question. If that can't be resolved, then the campus administrators are always a great next level, and they want to know and they want to make sure that things are taken care of well on their campus. Moving forward, I'll probably have next month some details on Special Olympics. So we're getting that rolling and we're going to expand into more events. So that is details are being worked out. And then we'll have another presentation coming up with our work with SAGE and also a parent advisory group that we're getting ready to roll out details for special education. So more information to come. Questions?
Right, I've got a couple of updates that I would like to share with you. The first one is in regards to transportation. We have Mr. Neal, who's our new director of transportation, here in the back with us tonight. And if you haven't had an opportunity to meet him, I know we met a couple of you. Please take an opportunity to tell him hello and welcome. He's done a great job of leading that transportation department along with Donna Holden and Johnny Canna. It was a really, really smooth start to the school year transportation wise. And so just to kind of lay out the timeline of how we got to this point, if you'll remember back in May, a few months ago, we opened up registration for this school year for those who wanted to sign up for transportation services. We kept that open for almost 2 months and closed it on July 21st. Everybody who registered for transportation during those 2 months, we routed them. So every student got a seat if they signed up. We still had some open seats on the bus. So we opened it back up again on July 30th, which is a Saturday, kept it open for about 3 or 4 more days, closed it on Wednesday, August 3rd, because we still had people wanting. They didn't quite get in on the first deadline. So they still wanted, had people requesting bus service. After we closed it on August 3rd, we still had a few people who didn't quite meet the deadline of August 3rd. So then we created a waiting list. We ended up having about 150 people on that waiting list. And we're starting to, and everybody who signed up between that July 30th and August 3rd, we routed every single one of those students as well. And so right now we're serving over 1,585 students. 1,585 was the number when I put the presentation together. We're still routing students. So Johnny, Donna, and Steve are going through that waiting list, and they're going through each student and determining this student would be on this route. Do we have enough seats on this route to put that particular student on? So just because they're number one on the waiting list doesn't mean that they'll get a seat. It's dependent upon what route that they would be on. So we right now have 12 regular routes. Our two biggest routes are, there's one on the south end of the district, Seis Lagos. It's pretty full. It's not pretty, it's very full. And then we have one in the Puster zone that's very full as well. Mr. Neal, I think it's even grown to maybe 3. We have 2 drivers, possibly 3 right now in training to get their CDL certification. As soon as they get their CDL certs, that would give us up to 14 or 15 routes, and we'll split some of those bigger routes to decrease the numbers and take the pressure off of some of those bus routes and those bus drivers and spread it out a little bit. So we're in really good shape right now. Like I said, we're full. There's no doubt about it, but we're in a lot better shape than some other districts. I know we've said that I hate to compare us to districts all the time, but there's some districts who are missing double-digit numbers of bus drivers. And then some districts who bus drivers are having to go and deliver a route of students, come back and get another group of students, deliver their route, and even sometimes coming back and delivering another route. So they're driving 3 routes every morning and every afternoon to get kids to school. We're able to do that in 12 routes, hopefully in the next few weeks. Mr. Neal will have his other drivers certified, and we'll have, like I said, 14 or 15 routes. It made a huge difference also the way we assessed fees and collected fees. Last year, we collected fees on a monthly basis. That was a task because we were always sending emails, always making phone calls. If you want to continue bus service, please pay us. This year, we assessed and collected fees before the school year began. And now we've collected over $300,000. Some of that's a combination of people paying for one semester only or potentially for the full year. In October, we're going to open up the window to register for second semester bus services for the people who are currently on bus routes now. So they'll have the opportunity, if they've obviously paid for the entire school year, they're going to be on a bus route for the second semester. If they've only paid for a semester, the first semester, they're going to let us know, yes, we do still need it for the second semester, or no, we don't. After we get that number, we'll open it up to everybody then in the middle of November for the rest of the semester to potentially route any new riders for the rest of the year. So that process, I know Mr. Neal is really excited to open up that process of registering kids again, because it's a big process, but his team has really done a good job with that. So the next one is security updates. After the Uvalde tragedy, the governor came out and said, we are going to be doing random door checks. He never really gave any details on what that would look like, how they were going to go about that. Over the past few weeks, that has been rolled out to us of what the logistics of that are going to be. And so I wanted to share that with you. As you know, we are served under Region 10, the Region 10 Education Service Center in Richardson. The Region 10, the state is actually hiring auditors through the region service centers. Those auditors will be going around to each district doing door checks, basically. Prior to the door checks being done, they're going to make a phone call to our district, to Ms. Cordell, and they're going to tell us as a district, Ms. Cordell, what month the auditor will be coming into our district doing. So they may give her a call in October and say, we'll be there sometime during November. So sometime during the month of November, an auditor will come in from Region 10, and they'll be doing an intruder detection audit. They will also request some information from Ms. Cordell, who our first responders are in our area, who our marshals are. They will make a phone call to them and also let them know what month they'll be doing the intruder detection audits. They have made a commitment that all districts, at least one campus in each district, will be visited by an auditor throughout the state by December of 2022. So every district in the state of Texas will have at least one visit from an auditor by the end of the semester. By May of 2023, 75% of all campuses in the state will be visited. So we will get a visit by December. They won't tell us which campus will be visited. And then again, like I said, by the end of the school year, 75% of the campuses throughout the state will be visited by an auditor. So the way they're going to do that is through 3 phases. The first phase is random door checks. And this is why they give us a call and give us a heads up. There's going to be a random person, an auditor, who comes. They're not going to be dressed in a hoodie, looking like an invader. It's going to be, they're wanting to be as common looking as possible. So they're going to be in a polo shirt, a dress, khaki pants, whatever. They're not going to be looking like an intruder. They're going to check when they come to a campus, they're going to check 3 exterior doors, and they're going to be checking to make sure that the door is locked and it's not propped open. They're going to be non-aggressive, so they're not going to come and start yanking on the door, beating on the door. It's just going to be a simple tug at the door handle to make sure that it's locked. And they're going to determine, obviously, are they able to gain access? If they're not able to gain access to that door, they'll go to the next 2 doors, and then they'll go to the front entrance. If they are able to gain access, they're going to go straight to the front office. While they're on their way into the front office, through the hallways, they're going to determine, did somebody make contact with me? Did they approach me? Did they ask who I am? Because they're not going to let anybody know. They're going to be in our buildings, in the hallways, with no identification other than, no identification. So if they are not able to gain access, they're then going to go to the front door, and they are going to go through our entry procedures through the front doors. They're going to ring the doorbell. They're going to determine were they greeted? Were they just buzzed in? Did they have to sign in? Did they have to get show their ID? Did we issue them a badge to give them identification of who they are? So that's phase 1 of the security audits. Phase 2 then is an exterior door check, which once they complete phase 1, immediately that day following phase 1, they'll go into phase 2. They'll make contact with a marshal on that campus or a campus administrator. That person will escort them around the campus, and they will check every door. They'll check the hardware, whether they were able to open the door or what have you. Phase 3 is the classroom door audit. So I want to be very clear about this part of it. They will check classroom doors only if we have a board policy or written guidelines that state that classroom doors are to be locked. We have an expectation that doors are locked and closed on every classroom. We do not have board policy. We do not have written guidelines. And so we will not be required to complete phase 3 of it because we don't have those policies written down or in board policy. So if we did, and there are some, the expectation is that schools do, but there is no mandate that schools have that. So that is one that we will not have to complete as far as the classroom doors. Some reminders that the audits, they will begin on September 12th, as early as September 12th. Once they complete the audits for that day, they're going to ask for our door sweep log. So one of the mandates and requirements is each week we have to do door sweeps and door checks throughout the campus. Casey and his team are doing them twice a day, so that will not be a problem for us to complete. But the minimum we have, or the minimum requirement we have to meet, is one door sweep per campus per week. And so they will ask to see either the digital version of that door sweep log or the physical, or we'll provide them a physical version of that. Finally, there will be a report left with the principal, which will be expected to be given to the superintendent. That day, the auditor will submit a report to the state, and the superintendent will receive a copy of that report within 5 days, reporting on what the findings of their audit is going to be. So we've finally gotten some guidelines on what those audits will look like. And finally, just an overview of our campus community security meetings. These were really successful, in my opinion. These were really successful meetings. We held, just to remind you, we had one meeting held at each campus, including the Child Development Center, and we had a really great turnout. We had a couple of campuses that were really close to 100 people who were in attendance. And the topics that Casey and I, and then whoever the campus administrators were in attendance for each of those meetings. We talked about the tools that we used within our school system to keep our kids and our staff safe. So things such as the Rhino door locks, our PLD systems. Casey talked about the procedures and protocols that we have in place. The one thing that we were asked and I think if we would have started off with this question and answering this question, I think 90% of everybody would have just gotten up and left. They wanted to know, in the event of a threat, an armed threat being on our campus, what is our response going to be? Are you going to wait for law enforcement? Are you going to approach and confront that attacker, if you will? And Casey's response was, number one, it was brutally honest. The response that you saw in Uvalde, which is very passive, will not happen in Lovejoy. And that's what people wanted to hear. They want to know is if we have somebody who is armed in our school building, in our classrooms, and our kids are in danger, what are you going to do? The person who can address that person, and you're armed, what are you going to do? Are you going to wait? Are you going in there to protect my kids? And Casey, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he was very direct, very precise, and that my job is to protect your kid, to go in and disarm this person to the best of my ability. And that's what people wanted to know. They don't want to know that there's going to be this amount of time that we're waiting on reinforcements. We don't have time to wait on reinforcements, and that's why we employ school marshals is to address the issue and the threat immediately. And so yeah, I think that the community, anyways, they were very well informed, and they were reassured that our marshal team they have a job to do and they're very willing to do it. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Great, thank you.
Okay, mine is short and sweet. Just some quick updates. Just wanted to let you know what our staffing totals are right now. So we have 275 teachers employed, and then 174 is more of support staff or staff members here at everything from directors, coordinators, those types of things, and then auxiliary staff for a total of 522. I believe we ran the numbers in February and they were over 600. So that's where we currently are. There are some positions that we still need support. We did hire a 6th grade science teacher. She'll start tomorrow. So we have that position filled. We're down to 4 special education aides. We're really trying to get support there. And of course, with custodial staff, after school, group leaders and LVN, SLP, which is speech language pathologists, nurse and child nutrition staff, we definitely need, as Dr. DePlessis said, definitely need staffing there. Our team talked today and we'll probably definitely be doing a job fair, another one. Even if we get 2 people, it's worth it. And to help our other folks out. And they are working hard and we want to give them credit, but it's hard work and we're doing everything we can to help support those programs.
Thank you. Thank you for those reports. And Mr. Neal and Mr. Littlefield, thank you guys as well. So appreciate that. Item 20 is to consider, anything else before I move on? Item 20 is to consider an act on the superintendent's annual goals for 22 and 23. Ms. Cordell.
Thank you. We've talked about these before. I have some goals for 22, 23 outlined here for you. By no means are these the only goals that we have in place. So we've talked about what you will be seeing forthcoming with our district improvement plan. You had that annual update for the previous school year. This evening, I can tell you that'll only grow in detail as this team has time to identify and get very specific with those desired outcomes and then our strategies to achieve those. You'll also see that in our Lovejoy 2030 strategic plan, we have some key indicators as well, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then you all know as well, as part of my annual evaluation process, there's accountability for academic outcomes, and that's an integral part of that process. This evening, Dr. Tinsley did a great job of bringing forward a very specific focus on student learning outcomes. The first goal listed here, increased focus on student outcomes at board meetings and workshops. I'm very pleased to have on here. We have had a focus, I think, really the last couple years that has had a center on our financial challenges. And while we still have those challenges, and while we're still working very strategically on those things, we want to make sure that we keep the center of what we do, which is student learning and providing our students with an exceptional learning experience, the center of our conversations, the center of our focus in terms of leadership, and keeping that in front of our community. And so you'll see an increasing focus on that at our board meetings and workshops that we bring forward. Keep in mind that this will both include those academic outcomes as measured by STAR, but also our outcomes, our student learning outcomes in multiple areas, some of which we are very, very proud of because they embody those future ready skills that our students need to build for their success, irregardless of what areas they go into when they leave Lovejoy ISD. Also on here, you'll see identify and communicate our Lovejoy 2030 strategies for initiation in 22-23. We all know it's called Lovejoy 2030 for a reason. We're not going to be able to initiate everything in year one, but it's very important that we bring forward to you a draft of where we're headed, where we're going to put our time and energy in the next couple school years in executing on some of those strategies and goals that our community has identified through that process. So you'll see that coming in September. Very excited about that. And then we will build in the opportunity for ongoing updates so that we are able to measure our progress. And then providing opportunities for stakeholder engagement. Our community and the level of parental and community involvement is one of our greatest strengths here in Lovejoy ISD. We are uniquely special and discernibly different because of our level of community and connection. And this really is one of our superpowers. And so we want to make sure that we are inviting and nurturing that partnership and the strengths of our community to continue to serve our students. So we've identified on here some target areas, making sure we're implementing a leadership Lovejoy experience for our community members to get involved. Board Academy, Silver Leopards, which is that one for senior community members, and then Capital Planning Committee. I also would like to share, there's some that aren't even on here. So we've had some real excitement surrounding Green Team, which is a arm of PTO, a group of parents that are very passionate about us making sure that we take care of the environment. And then they say we're going to save both types of green, the earth, and then also some money, which is great through these efforts. And they are going strong. And then, as you heard earlier as well, we're going to be implementing a special education advisory committee as well as a gifted and talented advisory committee. So the 4 listed on here are not even everything we're doing. And those are only the new things. And then working on developing that capital plan, which includes the INS and M&O impact. That capital planning committee will be a very important part of that process. It is critically important that we understand the current state of our capital assets and that we have a strategic plan and timelines for making decisions moving forward. We will also initiate development of partnerships with business, higher education, and or community organizations to benefit students, staff in the district. And as you heard Dr. Tinsley talk about earlier, while in the process of actually reducing our central office staff and reorganizing our central office staff, we were able to make sure that a portion of one person's job within her department is to help keep our focus on this on an ongoing basis. And then we are having conversations about how we can use these resources in our community to provide our students with new opportunities, innovative opportunities that would not otherwise be possible. And so there's a couple things in the works, and I'm excited for the conversations in those areas so that we can see what we can bring forward for our students that they haven't had access to. What questions do you have for me?
It was very thorough. I don't have a question.
These are goals we've been talking about for at least a few months, and through the workshops and through our team of 8 training and other opportunities to visit on them. So I think we've talked about them a lot. I think it's the one key. I know we purposefully left the first goal of student outcomes very broad.
Mhm.
And that can mean a lot of different things for a lot of students. And we talked a lot about it going way beyond just star scores.
Mhm.
And I'll be looking forward to where we drill into what exactly student outcomes means for all the different students.
I'm just excited to see. Again, that increased focus on student outcomes. If we keep our eye on the ball, and that ball is happy students who are succeeding, excelling, becoming better than they were the year before. In all areas, the graduate profile specific, outlines every one of those areas, but that is just, to me, the most important thing, and it's what keeps us going every month, coming to these meetings, sitting in these conversations about what's important. And that's what keeps our eye on the ball, having it clarified and lined out in the agenda. That's what makes sense for us. So I'm very happy to see that.
I think too, your other 4 goals underneath, they come back into supporting the student and the outcomes that we want for them. So I think it all fits together very nicely. But it is great to keep kids at the forefront, because that's why we are all here.
We have a year to see how the district has worked off of very specific goals from last year and how far we've come. And I have a high level of confidence that we're going to achieve all of these. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
So with that, I would entertain a motion to accept the goals as presented by Ms. Cordell.
I move that we accept the goals as presented for 22-23 academic year.
So moved, Marvin Bobo. Second, Jeff Wood, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Item 21, superintendent report.
We've had amazing things going on for students. It's been incredible. And on Saturday night, we got to participate in the Tom Landry Classic, and we defeated our opponent, which was awesome. But such a celebration for not only football, but for Majestics and cheer and band and our athletic trainers. I think that's the amazing thing about Friday nights is all of the students that get to be involved and have those experiences. And one of my favorite things to see is our younger students too, that get to look up to all of our high school students that are directly participating and support those efforts, and look forward to being part of those programs as they get older. That was really neat to see so many of our younger students get to be involved and get excited by that. But I am looking forward to our first home football game coming up this week, because again, another opportunity for that connection, that community, for us to come together and celebrate the opportunities our students are having.
Thank you very much. And next is public comments related to non-agenda items. And there are none. All right. With that, we would be adjourned.